Hey there, live like your nail color gals. Here's the truth. Life is hard. You may get severely ill. You might lose a job. A loved one deeply disappoints you, or something else that's difficult, even life changing. Chuck Swindoll said, "We're all faced with a series of amazing opportunities, brilliantly disguised as impossible situations." I love how he flipped the chip on tough times. That's what my gal pal Mary Kay Campbell did. What was suddenly one of the biggest challenges of her life became the path to a huge breakthrough that she's naming and claiming for other women. And it's packed with a whole lot of heart and fun. But first, before we dive into her juicy story, have you taken my quiz to determine your nail color persona? I always ask my guests to share their results before we dive into our conversation because it's just a fun way to get to know them. And all you have to do is go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Then you answer 3 quick questions and your results will come right to you and you can discover your specific nail color persona. There are 5 of them, by the way, your built-in strengths and how to tap into those strengths when chip happens. Again, go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now let's get talking with Mary Kay.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. Hey, I just want to take a moment to thank you for using your precious time to listen, offer feedback, and share this time together each week on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. It truly means a ton to me because, hey, I know your life is full there, and there are a ton of ways that you can choose to snag a break, which is crucial to staying energized. This is episode 23, and recently Kimberly on the production team congratulated me for completing 20 episodes, which I appreciated, but I thought it was a little odd until I learned that of the 2.4 million podcasts as of June 2022, 90% don't get past episode 3. And of those who keep at it, another 90% quit after 20 episodes. So according to this source, to be in the top 1% of podcasts in the world, you need only to publish 21 podcast episodes and keep going, by the way. So I'm like, woohoo, I'm there. But seriously, you know what really matters is that this podcast adds 1% to your life. To stay inspired, to feel confidence, and to have fun in this crazy, brave new world. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Hey, speaking of inspiration, confidence, and fun, let's get on with today's episode with gal pal Mary Kay Campbell. At the heart of everything she does, Mary Kay is a storyteller. As a writer, speaker, and communication expert who specializes in helping healthcare, nonprofit, and tech organizations. She loves making complex topics understandable and approachable, and then encourages others to take action. And in the midst of helping others, her own story had a big, unexpected plot twist that seems like an impossible situation, but turned into something amazing that drives her to inspire others. And I want you to hear about it. Mary Kay, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Mary. I mean, I love talking with you. Every time we talk, I just get so excited and inspired. And of course, you were on my podcast too. So I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Well, I love it. And you're right. It's fun both ways. It just, it's like-minded, like-hearted. Love that. And yes, I mean, it's kind of like, oh, I was on your podcast, which is called the Queens of Moxie podcast, right? I encourage everyone to check it out at queensofmoxie.com. That's one central place. I know it's on a lot of the podcast platforms too.
Right.
And we had such a great conversation there. I'm like, hey, you got to come on Live Like a Nail Color and let these gals get in on some of what you're up to. So as you know, one thing that's a little different about my podcast is before the podcast, I ask you and every Gal Pal guest to take my quiz called What's Your Nail Color Persona? So I asked you to take it, and I want to know right now, what turned out to be your nail color persona, and did it nail you?
So it's funny, Mary, because, you know, I'm an overachiever. I can't just do one. I had to do it twice. Because I don't paint my fingernails. I used to be a gymnast, and you know, when you do gymnastics, your hands are constantly hitting the bars or the ball or whatever. And so I've always kept my nails really short. And so I just don't paint my nails. So I am definitely a naked Nelly when it comes to my nails, my fingers, I should say. But I almost always have polish on my toes, and it's almost always blue or turquoise or something fun and colorful, which interestingly enough, makes me a, oh gosh, what's it called?
Oh, the Solid Sister.
Is that right? Solid Sister. Thank you. Which I thought was funny because I thought for sure I'd come up as the glitzy gal, but I am a Solid Sister and a naked Nelly.
I love it.
I think they do describe me pretty well.
Well, and do you remember the description of the Solid Sister that particularly resonated with you?
You know, it's one of those things that people always come to me and talk to me about things. And, you know, one of the things that is very consistent for me is that ability to connect with others. And I feel like it's a great blessing and something that I cherish. And I think it's a privilege. And so it talks about being that person that everybody comes to and talks to when they have something going on. And so that, like I said, I would have thought I'd be the glitzy gal, but no, I really am that solid one that people come to and really share life experiences with. And like I say, I really believe it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have
this
that.
Is why people come to you. Yeah. You listen and they feel like it's going to be confidential and they feel valued just by you listening. Now, that being said, you could have a little glitter in there sometimes, right? Because you are a very extroverted, sparkly person in terms of that. And I know that you also, one of the colors amongst the kind of the rainbow is like yellow. There's a lot of yellow associated with you, but you picked blue and turquoise as like your go-to colors. Is there something about those colors and the definition of those colors that really resonated with you?
You know, I think because I love the ocean, and I associate and when I say blue, it's like a periwinkle light blue. It's not I love royal blue, but that's not the color I put on my toes. It really is this beautiful light color, and I think it's that whole light, airy, and beachy kind of feel.
Yeah. Sure.
And in all honesty, I wear a whole lot of turquoise, and my eyes are blue. And when I wear turquoise or blue, my eyes really pop.
Oh yeah.
So I probably naturally, like gravitated towards those colors, but it's also the tranquility that they represent, because the shades that I pick are very
soothing.
They are. They're bright in the sense that they're blue or turquoise on my toes. Mary, I have to tell you this. I was working with an accounting firm, and my toenails were turquoise. And the CEO said something about how I was the only one that had turquoise toes, and everybody else's were, like black or brown, and my clothes were always bright and colorful, and my office was bright and colorful. And
it wasn't an accounting firm, by the way. So,
well, exactly, like my phone or my iPad had the tree of life with lots of colored leaves. And I said something to the IT director about, you got my iPad, and how'd you know it was mine? He goes, oh, well, everybody else's is black and brown. It's like, yeah, okay.
It wasn't obvious to you, but it was to everybody else.
Well, exactly. I mean, my phone cover, everything was colorful. And to not think twice about it. Like, there's all kinds of research out there that talks about the value of having art in your workspace and
Right.
how it increases innovation and flow time and allows you to have a lot more creativity. And for me, as a writer and a storyteller, having that creative juice come, like having that vibe and being in an environment that encourages that kind of thinking is very valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is really helping with your creative storytelling and your, like you were saying. Okay. So here's where I want to shift now, because now that I know you're Miss Tranquil, okay, at least that's what you're aspiring to, right from your toes up. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Also, though, I know you've been a big worrier, which
Yeah.
is the opposite of tranquil. So maybe that's why you're attracted to it. But okay, a lot of women can relate to that.
Yeah.
And the pandemic didn't help.
No.
Right. And what's happened since the pandemic, or just this rolling change and the waves of change that keep kind of pounding on the sand of life. But while in the pandemic party, in the middle of the party, something happened that suddenly caused you to let go of the worry and not to sweat the small stuff. So what happened?
Yeah. And Mary, I will say I have been aspiring to this for a very long time. Like I started doing mindfulness probably 8-10 years ago. And I tried to meditate and couldn't. And my license plate has been be still for 8 years at least. And so, I've aspired to this, but I've also been a single mom since my kids were 2 and 5. And so that alone created just an environment of being stressed because everything falls on you when you're and my ex is not on the same page as I am. So it really meant that I had to do everything, and that I always had this constant fear of what happens if something happens to me or my job or, whatever. And so yes, in February of 2021, I was driving south on a divided highway, but it's really more of a country road. The speed limit's 60 miles an hour, and a man pulled directly in front of me from a side road. And luckily, it was February, so the top of my convertible was closed. It's a soft top convertible, but I couldn't even slow down. So I swerved to try to miss him, hit the bed of his truck, rolled 360, spun around 180. I can remember every moment of it,
oh my gosh.
That moment when your stomach drops and you go, this is not going to be a near miss. Like,
wow,
that moment of realization, to the impact, to the whoosh of the airbag deflating down my face, the world spinning, my head hitting the asphalt or the roll bar, I'm not sure which, with incredible force. I mean, the window busting open and cold air coming in. I mean, I remember all of it. And I was sitting in the ambulance, and they were, the paramedic and the EMT were attaching all of these monitors to me, and my head was split open from front to back. And they kept checking the spot in the back of my head because the tissue was really protruding a great bit. And they were concerned that it was my brain.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like being in the ambulance too with all this. I mean,
it's bright fluorescent lights. And it's just this kind of surreal feeling because, it's almost like you're watching it happen to yourself, because it doesn't seem like that, I'm literally sitting in there going, okay, that really just happened. What? Okay.
It's amazing you have any mental computation or computing ability at all, like to think it, versus just completely traumatized by the pain and the of the accident. Okay, so you're in the ambulance. Keep going. All right. I gotta see.
And before the ambulance arrived, a firefighter, like the fire chief, lived around the corner, and he got the call. So he was there and he was checking me out. And I was standing by this electric box, and I'm shaking. And I know I'm in shock. And the paramedic, or the fire chief rather, is asking me all these questions. And he kept making me laugh. I'm like, you got to stop making me laugh. It really hurts when I laugh, but I know you're trying to keep me conscious. And I know I'm in shock, like there very much was this realization of, I know exactly what's going on. I'm the one that called 911. All the other people standing around
Oh my
hadn't called
gosh.
911.
I'm just amazed you were standing it all, because
I know
the car rolled and it spun,
Yeah.
and you heard the airbags go off, the window bust open, your head bashed. You said it was cut, front to back.
Oh, it was bleeding down my face.
How in the heck you would even move and get out of the car? I mean, it's a miracle in a way. You just go, it's amazing these things happen. It just, it just totally is. Right.
Well, I mean, I'm unbelievably grateful that I hit a car going 60 miles an hour and I walked away from the accident.
Gosh, yes, that in of itself, you're right.
I mean, the fact that I walked, the fact that I'm living, the fact that I can articulate my thoughts. But to get back to your question, I'm in that ambulance, and we had moved 5 months earlier because of my job situation. We were really, really unhappy. And I had continued to move up my career. And what I knew was that I wasn't happy in my job, but you do what you got to do. You got to provide for your family, and moving up the career ladder is what you're supposed to do. Right. So I'm sitting in the ambulance, and I literally thought, it's the middle of the pandemic. I've moved here 5 months ago. I know no one. I can't find my phone. Who the heck am I going to call to come get me from the hospital? And,
oh my gosh.
And it was really that moment of, I don't even know who I'm going to call. And so luckily they did find my phone, but that was the moment that I thought, I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm not going to continue on this treadmill. It's not healthy. I've been hearing whispers and taps on my shoulders for years. And I just kept going on that path, knowing that I wasn't happy, that I was not living my authentic life, that I wasn't fulfilled. And I did it out of fear. And
feeling of obligation that turned into, you can go from responsibility to obligation to drudgery,
Yeah. And so it was in that moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, sell the house, come back to Charlottesville. I ended up on disability for about 1.5 years while I have a traumatic brain injury while that was healing. And it's been an interesting journey, but what I think the things that, really resonated with me throughout this process is it just doesn't matter. Like I had emailed a friend of mine recently about, I want to talk to you about, I'm pivoting some things. I'm changing the direction of some of the things I'm going to do. And she's like, are you okay? Do you need to talk about them? Is it a crisis? I'm like, oh, very little is a crisis at this point.
Yes, I can imagine. Like, hey, I just flipped 3 times when the car spun around several, and I got up, and I can function at all. Okay. Yeah. You want to change careers? Go for it, girl. Talk about it.
I like to say, I think it's really important to rest in the pause, to really just stop. And I had a full stop. There was no debating that. There was no, am I going to, or am I not? No, I had to. And because I had to, I started to really appreciate how valuable that pause is, and how valuable it is to just stop and not freak out about things, because it doesn't change the what outcome. All it does is rob you of joy in the moment. And
that's huge.
It is.
Being able to rest in the pause and enjoy that moment. Enjoy that rest. Even find joy in that moment. Not knowing when you press play again what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But before you didn't feel like you could press pause.
No. I mean, so I was on disability, and my physicians wanted it to continue. And it was a private insurance company, and they decided that I was well enough to be removed from it. And they called me out on a Friday afternoon at 4:30 and said, it's effective immediately.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, that wasn't what I had planned. And I had a major surgery planned in August. And so I was like, I can stress out about this and freak out about this and, scramble, or I can, I had said to myself, because the disability was going to end in August. So it's not like it was a long period of time, but I had a two additional month runway to heal from this major surgery and to just really get to the place where I could fully invest in what I'm going to be doing going forward. And so I was like, I could really freak out about this, or I could continue with the path that I had, which was mid-September, really hit the ground and look for something that's going to be more sustainable, as well as doing Queens of Moxie and the Heart of Storytelling. And there were definitely some moments of freak out. And then, right before my surgery, I was freaking out more about like how, it was such a debilitating surgery that I couldn't wash my own hair. I couldn't pick up anything more than 10 pounds for 6 weeks. I mean, like, it was a lot. And I knew that was going to really be challenging. So I had stress about like getting my house ready and doing as much as I could beforehand. But beyond that, I wasn't worried about the job. And then it literally just fell into place on September 14th.
Wow.
And I had said mid-September, and I knew, I just knew it's going to be fine. But prior to my accident, oh gosh, I would have been wigging out big time. I mean, I just would have been making myself sick, quite literally, trying to figure it out. So, and Queens of Moxie is really all about helping women to make those changes, to live their authentic lives, to be true to themselves, to be those independent, strong women that we are. Sometimes we bury that, but to do that before or instead of having a traumatic event that precipitates it. For me, it was
right.
I'd been hearing all along I needed to do this, but I didn't. And then it was like, the universe saying, okay, you're not listening. So we're going to make sure you listen this time. So I don't want women to have to go through whatever the traumatic event is.
I wanted to talk about that, the Queens of Moxie, because I know that it came out of this experience. And so, I mean, I love the term Moxie. I mean, who doesn't want more Moxie? So first, tell us more that term. Like, what do you mean and how do you feel? What is all behind the word Moxie?
Yeah, it really is. I kind of feel like it's like that saying of I've got chutzpah. It really is. And it embraces everything that I believe women should be. And I think that it's such a powerful thing. Because we all have this, whatever your Moxie is within you, it can be different and it can be portrayed in different ways. But Moxie is really all about being strong, being independent, voicing your truth, living your truth. And it's so often we feel like we don't have permission to do that. And, or we feel like if we do it, we're going to be too much. And oh my gosh, I've been told I'm too loud. I'm too enthusiastic. I laugh too much. I'm too direct. I've been told all these things. And you know what? I am all of those things. And I, for a long time, did not feel comfortable with that because other people didn't feel comfortable with it. And I know that if I'm going to be in any kind of environment, I've got to be true to myself. And one of the things I think that we all learn at some point in our lives is there's this saying, everybody doesn't like you. So, or no, you don't like everybody. So why do you expect everybody to like you? And that's so true. I don't like everybody.
But that's a rational thought. That's something that gets to the emotion as to we don't like to be rejected either. And we
This is
don't
true.
like to be misunderstood. I mean, that hurts. So it's
Yeah.
easy for us to dish it out to others. It's harder to accept it coming our way, but perhaps taking some of the air out of that emotional balloon. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. And here's one thing I have found: the more comfortable I have become and accepting in that comfort of who I am, both my strengths and my weaknesses, the parts I love, the parts I wish were a little different, the more I'm able to extend that to others.
It also goes back to that, the fear that we were talking about before, of, and it's fear on a number of levels. One is the responsibility of being a single parent,
Yep.
and Charlottesville is a small community. There are, there are not always a lot of opportunities. And I felt limited in what I could do and where I could work. And so I had to make myself smaller to do that. And there was that underlying fear of, well, if I'm really myself, then I might alienate these people, or I might be too much for them. And if I'm too much, then I don't fit here. I'm a square peg in a round hole.
Because you've been told you were too much in some ways, I'm sure most of your life and prior to the situation you were currently in. So it echoes back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's turning 50. It's living through the pandemic. It's having this traumatic car accident. It's all of those things. And then learning to love yourself for who you are and learning to recognize that, if just because someone doesn't see your worth doesn't diminish your value.
So let me ask you this. When you were in your pause, did it conjure up? You'd already started some mindfulness practices, right? You already had started this thing of being still. It was even on your license plate, which ironically, that's one of the things that may not have made it through this accident. I'm not sure, but it wasn't.
It did.
Right?
It did.
Okay. So was it in that some of that space that you reflected more of again, who you are?
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of owned it at a whole nother level?
Yes. Yes. And, when you have a traumatic brain injury, it can really change your personality. And at the beginning, I was more reactive to things. Like my poor M is 17 now, but at the time, was younger. And why are you mad at me? I'm not, I'm sorry. I like things that would normally not bother you do, because you literally don't have the mental capacity to process them and think through it. So at the very beginning, I was much more, I don't want to say volatile, but I just responded to things differently than I would.
Irritable. I'm sure you were irritable.
I was in pain, and I was,
Sure.
and, there were a lot of things with my brain not working the way it should at the beginning, that made it frustrating on some levels. But, as time went on, I started to really look at the fact that I couldn't respond to some of these things because my brain just wasn't processing things quickly. But in those moments, I found peace. And so it was a reflection on what I want out of life. It was a reflection on who I am. It was a reflection on seeing the benefits of being still and quiet. And I do meditate. I try to do meditation every day. I'm not that great at it. But I do it at least 5 times a week. So I get up in the morning.
Yeah. The intention of doing it in and of itself is helpful.
Right. And am I perfect at it? My brain sometimes wanders and I think about what I've got to do. And, I just notice it.
I haven't had a traumatic brain injury and I don't wish it on myself, but I'll meditate in my wanders too, just so you know.
Well, and Mary, up until the spring, so more than a year after my car accident, I was still taking an hour and a half nap every afternoon. And it was not, I think I'll go take a nap. It was, I'm not functioning. I have to go take a nap. And, the first year, I would say well, no, the first 3 months, forget it. I don't know that I don't even know what I did. I don't know how I sold a house, packed up everything, found a place to live, moved back here, did my taxes. Well, I got my stuff together for someone to do the taxes.
But
I
still,
don't even know how I did
I
all
don't even know
that.
how you did that either. I
I
mean,
really don't. Like,
oh my gosh.
I look back and I think, how did that happen? Because I did not. I mean, when almost a month, like 3 weeks after my car accident, I went in for my first assessment for a concussion, because if you don't lose consciousness, you are not, you don't technically meet the requirements for concussion in the emergency department, which is ridiculous. They put 17 staples and stitches in my head. And I was in an accident where my car rolled and spun around, but they didn't diagnose me with a concussion. Strange thing. But 3 weeks later, I went in and they do this computerized test to assess your cognitive functions. And one of the tests examined your processing speed. So you say something, how long does it take for me to comprehend that, process it in my brain, and make sense of it? Could be driving a car, it could be talking to somebody, it could be cooking, whatever. At 3 weeks, my processing speed was 16%, 16.
Oh my gosh. Oh my, that's amazing that it was so low, because you were still doing some stuff, right? And well, 3 weeks it was low. I don't know if that was probably too early on to get your tax stuff together and perhaps sell a house. I don't know. Were you?
Well, I don't know. I was in the accident on February 5th. We moved March 26th.
Oh my. Wow.
I literally, I don't know how that all happened, but my first 6 weeks of physical therapy for the cognitive aspect of it was before we moved. So I did have a 6-week period where, and I'll tell you, doing that, it's remarkable what you can do with physical therapy. I had no idea that they could help with cognitive function. And then I had a second round, and now I'm in my third round that's dealing with the physiological aspects of it. But I think that I had no choice at the beginning, but then, a year into it, I was, and by the way, at the end of the 6 weeks, and this is important to note too, I was at 64%. So I went from 16 to 64.
That's a significant shift in a relatively short period of time. It just shows how the body and the brain can rebuild. And you weren't even like the Bionic Woman then. I mean, those listening could remember the Bionic Woman, the show. We could build her. We could put it on anyway.
Put it on my head.
That's right.
Yeah. No. I mean, how remarkable is it that your brain can remap and create new neural pathways that allows me and others to do this? And, I often say this, I was on disability, but I started a business, and I went through a 16-week entrepreneurship program, and I joined NSA Virginia, which is National Speakers Association, how I met you. And I do the weekly masterminds, and I do all these, I read these books, and I've continued to challenge myself. And I really, truly believe that because I did that work, I healed my brain. It is because I did that I challenged myself enough that my brain created new pathways.
Wow. Well, so here's what here's what I'm thinking as you're saying all of that. And the question is, what you described, particularly at the 3-week mark of only 16% really computing capacity as measured, right?
Great way of describing it.
Yeah. And then another 3 weeks, so at the 6-week mark, you were at 64%. A great quote by Chuck Swindoll. And what he says is that life is a series of amazing opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations.
Yeah.
And you had it seems like an impossible situation or it
Yeah.
feels that way, the way it looks at it. And yet amazing things happened. So is there a lesson here for all of us to take away to be
Yeah.
more Moxie? Is it, what's the key then? What's one of the essentials of being Moxie from that?
I think there are a couple aspects of owning your moxie. One is to trust yourself, trust that you know what's good for you, and you really have to believe that you have these opportunities for a reason. And then there's the trust of stepping off that ledge,
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to give this a shot. And, at the end of the day, what's the worst that happens? And, I had a CEO once who I absolutely adored. And he used to say to me, like, if I messed up something and I beat myself up because, oh my gosh, I hold myself to this unreasonable standard, or I used to. Now I don't, but because I can't. But he used to say to me, Mary Kay, and this was in a hospital, so give it context. Did anyone die? No. Did anyone go to jail? No. Okay, we're fine. And this is a highly successful CEO for a hospital, and brilliant man, fantastic leader. And he had very high standards, don't get me wrong, but he also knew that I was going to just destroy myself if I focused on the little things that went wrong. And so I take that perspective when you're taking a chance, when you're taking a risk. Moxie is about owning yourself and owning who you are and being authentic and living your joy. So that might be pottery for one person, and that's what brings them joy. I'm not saying that's your career, but find ways of incorporating that in your life. Another person, it might be nature and going out and being one with the earth, and make sure you incorporate that. Some of us have the opportunity to do what we love in our careers, and that's fantastic. I love connecting with people. I love hearing their stories. I love telling their stories. And with Queens of Moxie, I get to do the podcast where I get to hear everybody's stories and talk to them about it. I love those things. And that for me is like, wow, it gives me the chance to do what I am good at and what I love. And, for a couple of years, people used to say to me, Mary Kay, your superpowers are connecting with others, public speaking, and writing. And I was like, okay, I don't know about these whole superpower things, right? I didn't really know what superpowers were, but I heard it so many times that I was like, okay, these are my superpowers. And they are gifts that I get the opportunity to use and share with the world. So my ability to connect with others means that I am able to help others tell their stories, or I'm able to help somebody through a difficult time. And so claiming that is my moxie.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the inspiration to start the Queens of Moxie, the podcast, and I know you have ideas to do retreats or to do a membership and just do additional things because it's just really started. And I know you're going to get to episode 20 or above, right? Okay,
absolutely.
So
I think I've got 13 recorded right now.
See, you're on the way to the top 100%, 1%, excuse me. But I was thinking about the women that in particular you're aiming to impact.
Mm-hmm.
They're often in a transition, or they're of a new phase, a new chapter in their lives because of their age and their stage.
Yeah.
If they were a mom, or our mom, you never were, but they're through. It's not the phase of raising the kids.
Yeah.
It's letting the kids go off and create their adult life.
Yeah.
And they may or may not have a spouse. They may also, they're in a new phase where they're figuring out, what do I want now? Right.
Yeah.
And tapping into, well, who am I now? What are my strengths? What are my gifts? What are my superpowers? That can be difficult to do by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's been really remarkable to me is when I've given inspirational speeches about Queens of Moxie and about claiming your joy, every single time women come up to me afterwards and say, you were describing my life. You literally described exactly what I'm going through right now. And when you hear that over and over again, it's resonating. It's real. It's something. And, part of it for me was that I was in this place. I've been a single mom for 15 years. My son is in college and M is about to graduate. And I'm going to all of a sudden, for the first time in 15 years, not have that daily responsibility of child caring. And what does that mean? And how do I define myself as an empty nester, particularly because I'm single and I don't have a partner. And then my mom recently passed and my dad is aging and I've got, the responsibilities of that. And then I had this career shift and recognizing I wasn't happy in my career. But you know what? I wasn't the only one who was miserable in my job. There are a lot of people and, I'm in menopause, like all of these things, I'm going to say it like it is. I don't care.
It's like change-orama. Like every single major area of your life is changing.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of gal pals listening who can relate to that. Yeah. And some of it is brought upon by age and stage. And some of it was just fueled to the fire because of the pandemic party.
Yes.
And so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, is to share the stories. You're not alone. And there are ways to work through this because chip does happen, right?
Yeah.
But how can we use that to work for us versus say, against us, and avoid, hopefully, the traumatic interruption that you experience. We could keep talking. But we've got to finish up. So I love it. I love that you're doing Queens of Moxie. I love that there are more and more women who are finding their voice or finding it in a new way, expressing it, and in a way not to just say, here I am, but to say, hey, there are other women, you're feeling this too, I bet. Or if it's not just woman to woman, it's to some cause or it's to something they really care about, but they are using their voice and their efforts to not just say, I went through something challenging and it hurt, but because of that, I'm more motivated than ever to have it as an inside out job to make a positive impact. And I think that's fantastic. So it may not seem so, I don't know, weighty to ask the next question, but I'm going to have to do it anyway, which is, I got to ask about nail color. Okay. So, because it is something on the tips of our fingers or toes, it can keep us keeping on and cheering us. So for you, it's going to be a toenail color. But if you could name or create a name of a color of a toenail color that would inspire you to put more moxie, inspire us all to put more moxie in our lives, what would that name be?
Thrive. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I want us all to thrive. I don't want us to just survive. I want us to move from that into thriving. And that, each individual defines what thrive means to them. But that really is what I think is essential.
Yeah. And would it be turquoise, by the way, if you could wave a magic?
It's funny because when I think of thrive, I don't think of the colors that I wear, which is kind of funny. You would think, oh, yeah, that's it. No, I would think of a very bold, strong red.
Courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courage and passion.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So thrive on.
Thrive on.
I love it. All right. For those who would love to just connect with you, Mary Kay, maybe find out more about Queens of Moxie, what's the best way they can do that?
Honestly, everything is on my website. So queensofmoxie.com, and you can sign up for a weekly inspirational email. It's probably the best thing to do because every Monday I send out an email that's got a beautiful image. I love photography, so I have lots. I have like 14,000 pictures. Not all great, but I have a lot. So I have a plethora of images. I also love quotes, and I have, I don't know, 500, 700 quotes, something like that. So I pick an inspirational quote, I pick an image to go with it. And then I also put a link to the latest podcast, which comes out every Friday. So that way, if you sign up for the weekly inspiration, you get them all. And that's it. That's all that is. It's just a way to start your week off on a positive note. But it's queensofmoxie.com.
Great. I will put that link in the show notes. So I would highly encourage you to check it out. And, the more stories we understand and we hear of one another, I think that there's always something in everyone's story that speaks to ours. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your Moxie coming out in a big way. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, Mary. And thank you for all your listeners too.
And now for the after party I call Flip the Chip, where I take a few minutes to highlight something my gal pal shared that can help us all flip a challenge or a difficulty that's holding us back into something more positive that helps us move forward. What I want to highlight today is resting in the pause. I love that phrase that Mary Kay Campbell said. So I was thinking more about that. First, there's pressing the pause button. If you're a doer whose default is to press play in the morning and then go until evening, pressing pause is not as easy or as comfortable as it sounds. But what also sucks is feeling exhausted, run down, and unfulfilled. I have personally been there. Press the dang pause button before it's your health, your significant relationships, your career, or your business that forces you to press pause. Then there's the resting part. I know, what a concept. The truth is that putting yourself in a restful state is a skill like anything else. No matter if the workplace, clients, family members, or the latest news is full of drama, you can do actions that shift your heart and your mind into resting, even for a few minutes. Some examples include walking outside when you've been inside in the office all day or doing whatever. Some deep breathing exercises, closing your eyes, listening to a 3-minute meditation or ocean sounds, saying a gratitude prayer, or training yourself to take a 10-minute power nap. Now, that to me is a skill worth figuring out how to do. Whatever you choose, your heart, your mind, and your body will thank you. And of course, you can use your nail color to cheer you on by simply putting on a new nail color and giving it the name Thrive, as Mary Kay suggested, because pressing pause and resting helps you thrive in a huge way. And then every time you look at your fingers or toes, it reminds you also that by simply pressing pause and resting, you are being a Queen of Moxie, who is all about thriving in the space and the place of where you are and who you're becoming. See, you can make good choices to create the career, business, and life you want, one step, one nail color at a time. Hey, look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at livelikeyournailcolor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.